Welcome to Tuesday Talk with Terry, where empowerment and hope are keys to transformation and wholeness. Here's your host, Terry Hammond.
Good morning. Welcome, friends, to Tuesday Talk with Terry. I'm so excited today to have Felix Jones here with us today. Felix is going to really lead us in a conversation that is greatly needed, I believe, today on how to navigate education during COVID. And so welcome, Felix. Welcome today. Felix, would you like to just tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started in our conversation?
Absolutely. Hello, and thank you for having me here today. And hopefully, I can, be of some value to your audience. So I am in education, about 19 years in education. I started off as a substitute teacher, and then I became a middle school teacher. I taught middle school math for 3 years. And then I taught high school math for 7 years before I went to work at the district office as a math intervention teacher on assignment. Basically what that was is me supporting 14 of our secondary schools with math intervention. And then from there, I took a job in Los Angeles with the Partnership for Los Angeles Schools. I worked in that capacity for 3 years as a math coordinator, supporting some of our most underserved communities in Los Angeles, where I really experienced a huge growth spurt. And now I am an assistant principal at Kaiser High School in the great city of Fontana. I'm entering my 3rd year as an assistant principal there. So that's kind of my background. I also have a vested interest in education because I have 2 daughters, one daughter that just graduated high school and another daughter that is in the 3rd grade as well. And so I'm a husband and a father with a slew of nieces and a couple nephews that I'm always pushing, academically as best I can.
Wow, that is amazing. That's so amazing. And I love your heart, Felix, for families and for helping, as you said, the undeserved, or those that are in need, right? In great need. And so I love that. I absolutely love that. So can you just share with us from your, observations and from what the information that you've gathered, how can we best navigate education during this COVID? I mean, I've seen all kinds of different things going on. I have 2 daughters also who are navigating this with their little ones, and heard of others, and it's really been difficult. One daughter's taking her son to work with her in the morning. Another daughter's got one she's dropping off. That's okay to go. And another one, or that same daughter, has the other daughter on the technology on Zoom. And she's actually supposed to be doing PE in the car while they're driving 30 minutes that way and 30 minutes back. So, I mean, right there, how do you navigate these things?
So I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, right? How do we navigate life in COVID, this COVID reality that we have? And I think when we start with that component, and then we can kind of drill down to education, I think we're going to see some analogous needs there. And one of the things that we definitely see is just this idea of belonging, this idea of meeting those needs of just, physiological needs. When we start thinking about like Maslow's hierarchy of need, right? Like the first is like food and just fresh air and being able to move around, and then, moving up to safety needs. How safe do I feel emotionally, physically, and then belonging. And I think that belonging component is so huge in society as well, because on top of COVID, we have all of these other, sociological and political things happening around us that are going to make their way into our classrooms and onto our virtual campuses. And so just the idea of belonging, like, who am I? What group do I belong to? And I think that's where like schools can really, really play a huge part in this COVID crisis, if you will. Schools have historically been a place where kids can connect, where they connect to different athletics and clubs and different groups on campus. And so I think that's the first thing. I think as adults, we need that, right? So that we can be healthy. But also our kids need that. And so I think first, looking at the school as a place to connect. And one of the things we do at our high school is like, we just believe in tribe. If we can get students to connect to a program, I mean, we know that they're going to do better. If they're part of the band, we know they're going to they're going to do better. They're part of the football team because they have that belongingness, and they have that coach or that club advisor or that mentor that's going to push them to do the right things. And so that's kind of from a high school level. But when we start looking at elementary and middle school, those really, really important formative years. They're forming their personalities and figuring out who they're going to be. And because of the distance, that makes it tough for kids to connect with students. And so we have these other things that parents can do, whether it's Girl Scouts or different things that we can do virtually, virtual Bible groups or virtual clubs and things of that nature. Really is going to help put the student in a place where, they're ready to learn. Because, I mean, quite frankly, the reality is our middle school students, the most important thing to them is belonging and connecting to people. And they're figuring out what's cool and what's not cool. So again, I think distance learning provides a unique opportunity for us to connect with students without some of the noise of, what am I wearing today? What's in style? What kind of shoes do I need? Distance learning provides us a space where, kids can bring themselves and to focus on really who they are instead of a lot of the external things. And so I think that's kind of where we start is the belonging before we even get into content or curriculum or schedules or settings. Like, it's really about making sure that our children and our teachers as well, are in a really healthy space emotionally and mentally before we can really, really get into trying to dive into some content.
Yeah. Wow. That, like, right there, we could unpack so much. There's so much. But I love, it feels to me, or it sounds like to me, like there was the flip in my own mind that you brought out was keeping them connected in other ways also. Like you said, even if they're not meeting in a program on campus or band or some of those things, to connect them in groups in other ways. Girl Scouts, and so then you made me think, is Girl Scouts meeting online? Are they doing that? Possibly they are still meeting like that. So maybe we need to research that, right? And look into what can we do on the online space to still build that community and allow our children to participate in things outside of the home within that. So it was an interesting thought too.
Absolutely. And I was focusing on like kind of individual, but there are those youth groups, but also thinking about the home environment. Students now are requiring, stronger relationships with those who are in the home with them.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, again, an advantage, if you will, to this situation where, students are having to connect with their parents a little more. They're having to connect with their siblings just because, they're in a space with them more often. And so that's a good thing. The unfortunate thing is that, we haven't been doing that historically. I mean, me, even as a teacher, I come home at 6, 7 o'clock at night, spend an hour with my kid. We have dinner, they go watch TV, I go do my thing, they go to bed. And so it's maybe an hour and a half, a day that, me as the breadwinner in the home that's going out to work. I've been, blessed to have a stay-at-home mom for most of the time that we've been married. But now I'm in the home more. And so I'm having to get used to my kids, and they're having to get used to me in the home, and just, having those relationships in good spaces provides a student, again, more freedom to have the opportunity to learn and to, grasp new concepts. And so there is, this huge opportunity, but it could also be a detrimental as well if those relationships aren't as healthy as they should be.
Yeah. So let's talk about the first, just talking about having the kids in our space and when we're in their space. And the word that, as you were speaking, that comes to mind is being intentional. I know for us, we had to really be intentional that we're just not just being our own and just being in the house and just being separate, right? I mean, being separate is okay for a certain amount of time, but when we're here, to be more intentional about what is going on and how to interact. And so I think for us personally, it has been a time to intentionally think about, okay, what can we do, right? What can't we do? You got to flip that mindset, like, what can we do? And so part of that for us personally has been to be able to work out, to go on walks, because you can go out, gives you some fresh air, gets to release some endorphins, right? I say I'm in a home of 3 men. So there's a lot of testosterone in my house and there's very little estrogen going on here.
Okay.
So I'm like, I got, get these guys out a little bit and to walk, exercise. We've been utilizing the backyard as a gym, right? Push-ups and lunges and jump ropes and doing some of those things, but then also coming back in and one son has art classes and he has some things that he does online and he goes in his room and has his private time. And then another one who's actually just at Chaffey College. And so he has his classes that he has online, but making sure that we're, and then coming together. One thing that my husband highly, stresses, I want to say, is us being at the dinner table every night together. And this has enabled us to be at the dinner table together every night, and not just to eat and get up, but to really have conversation with each other, and then to get up and do dishes together, as a family. So, but we've had to be intentional about that, because I know that sometimes I want to think, well, I need to do this and I need to do that. And I've got this to get done. And because the things that I do, even though I'm not driving places and I'm not taking the time that way, I still have things that I'm involved in that I need to get done. But it was being intentional with family and not just, and that has really blessed us. It has blessed us. It brings conversation to the table.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, your situation is the exact opposite of mine. I live in a home with 3 women. And so there's a lot of estrogen in my home. And again, like I said before, I work long hours and now I'm in the house more and I'm realizing, like, wow, like they talk a lot. They talk a lot.
Right. And that's what I'm missing. And that's what, yes, exactly. Yes.
So that's one of the things that sometimes I like, at first it was kind of like, oh, but then it was like extra words, like leading to other issues, because like, it seems like the more words that are used, the more opportunity there is for misunderstanding. And so, but I think we're kind of like veering off a little bit, but the part about being intentional, I think is absolutely right. My youngest daughter is very social, extrovert, and I started to see her change because, she's around, my oldest daughter's 18, and then it's me and my wife, and so she's around basically 3 adults all the time, and she's 8. Yeah. And so the expectations, and so I had to realize, okay, I need to be silly, but I can only be so silly. And so providing her time where she can do video chats with her friends. And, we started going on hikes here in Fontana down in Parupa Hills and finding different hiking trails around the city and outside the city. And like you said, just being really, really intentional about making sure that, one, we're paying attention to our children. Like I say, I noticed that, that my youngest daughter was changing a little bit. Her personality was changing. I was like, we have to do some things to get her connected. First, I need to be silly more, and I need to get her with some, age-appropriate kids and age-appropriate activities. And so, we found creative ways to do that while social distancing, and also connecting with family and, keeping that tribe. But being intentional around setting as well. When you talked about the student who's in a car, like doing their schooling time, like that is somewhat problematic, right? I couldn't do it. I'm a 46-year-old man with a lot of different resources, but if I had to be in a class while in a car driving, like it would be so difficult for me to do that. But we know that, certain realities and circumstances require that, that we have to do things that are, difficult or uncomfortable. And so when we start thinking about education and being intentional, just around setting, where am I situating my child to do their work?
Okay.
They spend most of their time in their bedroom, maybe it's the kitchen counter. Or maybe if the kitchen counter is a place where they spend a lot of times, we want to try and find a consecrated place for our students to sit down and do their work. Whether it's, like I say, get a kitchen table, the living room couch, if you can have like a tray or something where they can kind of sit. But we really, really want to find a space where our students can be successful, and it's different. It's kind of different than what they're used to. And that may be, finding just a table, putting it in a corner, and then posting up some pictures or some positive imagery, so that student is in a space that, okay, this is where I'm going to school. And then the brain will kind of change how they are engaging with the material that's put before the students. So being intentional with the setting, and different times, being intentional about, what time are we going to get ready, like 30 minutes before school starts. What is that routine going to be like? And then what is the routine going to be like after, as far as if teachers are giving homework or asynchronous work? That's a fancy term in education now that I've never heard before. But so there's synchronous learning, which means that, like you and I, we're having a synchronous conversation because we're in sync together. Asynchronous learning is when a teacher would give a student an assignment, which would historically have been kind of like homework, but it could be something where students have to explore on their own. And so there's synchronous time where they're engaged with the teacher, asynchronous time where they're doing their learning, but it's not in direct interaction with their teacher.
Okay. Yeah. Right. And I love that. I love kind of what, I don't know, I think in something you mentioned was schedule, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing you said is setting, right? The setting,
Mm-hmm.
and then the space. I have all the S's. I don't know. I just come up. I was picking up on that. So the schedule, getting.
You must be a preacher.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like teach Bible study fellowship, and those things just kind of fall out in divisions for me. You're right. But
yeah.
Sorry.
You're good.
But the schedule, so I love that schedule, like the time to get up, to get ready, and to have that, and then to have that setting. I love that, the space, that like, this is my space, and have some pictures, not just a wall in front of you, or, something where that's definitely different, but welcoming, right, for them to be able to have that space, and to, so that they can really focus in the home, that's now their school setting, to be able to engage in the things they need to do, whether that is together with the teacher and the students, or off on their own. So, wow, that's really helpful to be able to think about setting those things up. Yeah.
Definitely. And the space component is so important. Because it does some things, again, with the brain, but it also does some things like emotionally and socially. It tells the student that, okay, our school time is valuable. Like, it's important. It's so important that I have this space, and it's not just an empty space. It's a space where it's, it's decorated. And I encourage folks to change that space. Maybe, depending on the seasons, have a fall season, because especially in the younger years in elementary, and it's even valuable all the way through high school. Some of the best teachers have that same type of theming that we see in elementary school, where in the fall they have the leaves around, and then, as we go into the holiday season, there's kind of that theme. It activates the brain, and it lets the brain know that, like, this is a space that things are happening and I need to be paying attention to what's happening. And so, and also, providing students some power in influencing what that space looks like. And maybe bring one of their favorite pictures or one of their favorite action figures or something that can be in that space. We want to try and empower our students as much as possible because, so many choices have been taken away from them. Even when you think about recess or lunchtime, these are times at school where students have power and they have the opportunity and ability to make choices. Where am I going to sit down for lunch? Who am I going to eat lunch with? What am I going to do during recess? Who am I going to do it with? And so those are spaces throughout their school day where they get to make choices. Pulling that away and putting them in the home where, they make choices around, where they're going to be and how they're going to play. But in their school setting, their choices have been removed. And so we want to try and provide them with some choices as to, how that space looks.
Wow, that's empowering. I mean, I wouldn't have thought of that necessarily. And I think that is so, like, their choices have been taken away. And that, as parents, a lot of times, it's not that we want to tell them everything to do, but we're kind of saying here, this, that, but to allow them to make some of those choices, to be able to navigate that, and starting with their space. Right. And maybe thinking even beyond that, what they, getting ready in the morning, setting their timer, or giving them some more responsibility because they probably can handle a little bit more because there's less out in the environment that's being required of them.
Absolutely. When you think about the choices, one of the things that we're doing with our youngest daughter this year, because she wanted to improve her reading and, she wanted to have the most points in her class. And so we set a goal and said, okay, you're going to read 5,000 words a day. And so that may mean she can pick one book that has 5,000 words, or she can pick 10 books that have, 500 words. But how she attains those 5,000 words during her asynchronous time, you can do that, right after, or you can have a break. How do you want to do it? And a set schedule is probably the most. Well, I want to talk a little bit about routines a little later, but I guess I'll go ahead and talk about that now. Routines being, very crucial in this time. That morning routine. What do they do when they get it? Because again, when school is in session, there is a routine. It may not be like set in stone, but there is a time when you have to get into the car, or where you have to be at the bus stop, and then you travel to that space. And then once you get to that space, you have to go. So there are these built-in routines that we do just intuitively with school. Now that we're at home, some students are getting up, kind of rolling out of bed, coming on camera, or they're brushing their teeth. And today I might have breakfast, today I might not, or I may brush my teeth, I may not, I may comb my hair, right? And so there are all these different, routines that normally, for sure, you would have had to do if you were going to school. Yeah. Now, at home, we want to create those routines because students and kids, like they won't admit it, but they desire and they love structure. They're not going to admit it to you, but providing them that structure, but in the choice, when choice comes into that, is helping them give input on what that routine looks like. Yeah. I'm going to get up, I'm going to wash my face, brush my teeth, then I'm going to eat, and then I'm going to comb my hair. Like, I don't have to comb my hair right after I brush my teeth. There's no law that says that. Right. And then come to school, and then whatever that schedule is in every school district and every school within that district has a very unique schedule. And so once you go through that school schedule, which may be an hour and a half to 4 hours of synchronous learning. And it varies based on the many different schedules that I've seen from elementary through high school. Our students could potentially, at the high school, could potentially have 320 synchronous minutes over 6 hours or over 5 hours of screen time with a teacher. I've seen some that are as short as an hour and a half a day of screen time, and the rest of the time is on their own. And so what that on your own time looks like, providing students with some choice there, and then after school activities. Like, what are we doing after school? Because if school is just an hour and a half or 2 hours, that provides this huge space of kind of just free time. And so we want to be able to monitor that. And again, have a routine for that as well. Like, what is the routine for after school? After school, or after our synchronous time, are we eating and then we're going for a walk? Are we eating, we're doing a small workout and then we're reading? Like, providing those routines are vitally important for our students. But also providing students the opportunity to have some input and empowering them to help build that schedule and that routine is also important.
So Felix, I'm going to ask you a question because it's, coming to mind, not everybody has the luxury of being home with their students and being there, side by side with them. So, or to, I know for one of my daughters, she drops one off at like a preschool in the morning, and the other son, he's second grade, needs to be on, I think second grade, needs to be on at 8:00. So he's on a device as she drives to her work. She takes him and she's in an office. Her work has allowed her to be in an office with him, and while he's online, so she can help with anything while she's doing her work. And then at lunchtime, like you said, he's on, I think, until 10:30 or 11. And then at lunchtime, she takes him home, and then a neighbor steps in to be able to help, and she goes back to work. And then she comes home, and then she's picking up the homework, and she's picking up the other one from preschool and doing all of these things. And I just, see it's I can see the exhaustion. I can see the, how the toll that it's taking on her, and and trying to be there for him. Can you speak into that at all?
Yeah, so I mean that's the harsh reality of this situation, because everyone has different layers of supports. And even as you were speaking of your daughter's situation, that's a tough situation. However, she has some support systems in there, and there are, folks who don't even have those support. A student is at home, by themselves. And when I say a student, I'm talking, a fifth grader who's 10 years old. Has a window of an hour and a half, or multiple hours, because I think California doesn't have an age requirement where kids can stay at home alone. And that's
Yeah, somebody made that statement to me recently. I overheard someone say it's kind of like we're turning back to those latchkey kids that it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what we are seeing going on, is because not every family, has that opportunity to be at home alongside of their student. And again, not young students, of a certain age. I know some families have created pods where they feel that they can have the kids be together in pods and do the learning online. And then the next parent takes it and then helps. And so they kind of rotate within a COVID-friendly environment, I think. And so I've heard of, but I think the other big thing is that people are getting very creative, right?
Mm-hmm.
Prayerfully asking the Lord and asking him to supply and meet the needs, and getting really creative. Like you said, or like I was sharing with you, my other daughter, driving to the little one to her TK, and my other granddaughter, so one just turned 5 and the other one's 11. Okay. So the other one they're in Orange County area. So she was driving her to school, and the other one's doing PE in the car. And the teacher, right, he's not really aware of what's going on, but all the kids are like, why are you in the car? Why are you not doing PE? What are you doing? Where are you going? They're like, where are you going? Everybody wants to go somewhere, right? Yeah. And so then the teacher was kind of getting on her on Zoom in front of the other students about why she wasn't doing PE. Yeah. So then my daughter sent a little email, right, that we're doing the best we can, and I'm dropping one off. I drive 30 minutes to drop one off. I drive 30 minutes home. And so that's an hour that we're in the car. And so because she has 0 period PE until she's back in school. So the beautiful thing was, though, that I share, Felix, was that the teacher changed the PE to yoga. He never responded, or he or she never responded back to my daughter's email. But what they did was now she was able to do something yoga in the car while she was dropping her off. And so I appreciated that, working back and, you know, just kind of thinking outside the box, because we have to think about not everybody's situation is that they are at home in that, you know, situation, and that the whoever the teacher was, the PE teacher, was willing to work and to think differently to be able to help this other, you know, my granddaughter. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think that solution is the solution, is that, you know, when there is the synchronous time with the teacher, you know, students should be on there. And I think that's the tough part when you have an adolescent who may be going through some rebellious years and they're like, I'm just not going to log in with my teacher. Like, that's going to be problematic because no one's there to hold them accountable to log in. But what we have to do is take advantage of the asynchronous time. If the student can't do the work during that time period, and it's going to require a little more heavy lifting from parents and from other support folks. When mom does get home, or when dad does get home, you know, now they have to do that asynchronous time or ensure that the student is getting online and doing that work. And some of the schools that I've had discussions with that have that very small hour-and-a-half synchronous time, that's the reason why. They're saying because that's about all the time that we can, you know, ensure that grandma can have kid on the device, and the bulk of the time is asynchronous. So that provides families with the freedom to address those learning activities, you know, at 5 o'clock, at 7 o'clock at night, or, you know, at 7:30 in the morning before they go to work. We have to get up. And so the reality is, in the realm of education, like, everyone is having to work harder, you know, from the administrator to the teachers, to the students, to the parents, to the paraprofessional, to the district office support people. Everyone's working harder. And that's just the reality that we live in. The unfortunate part is, and that's one of the things that we wrestled in education, is when we start looking at those who are significantly disadvantaged. And we knew, you know, back in March, like, man, the first thing that came to my mind was distance learning. This could be good, but this could be also another mechanism or another situation that, you know, provides, you know, the more affluent folks will be able to do more because of those supports that they might be able to have. And then those who are less affluent would have less because of the access to Wi-Fi, you know, the supports that are in homes. And so as school districts, you know, we had to start thinking about, are we going to, you know, focus and push content? And we also have this social emotional component that we have to be mindful of as well. You know, we're going through a, you know, unprecedented pandemic. And, you know, am I going to have these students focused on, you know, quadratic equations and exponential functions when, you know, mom and dad may be losing their jobs? And, you know, in the community that I work in, I work in a high service area where, you know, we had one student where, you know, dad was a cook at one of the local restaurants, and then he worked at the hotel at night, and mom worked housekeeping at the hotel. And the hotels weren't taking anyone, and the restaurant was closed. So we had a home, a very hardworking family who had 3 jobs in the home down to no jobs.
Wow.
And, you know, that's just one case, one scenario that's pretty extreme, but there are more like that. Yeah. And so as a school, we said, okay, first, how can we help this family meet their needs? So we reach out to our folks. But then second, you know, we have this dilemma here where, you know, some of our less affluent students, we can't afford for them to fall further behind academically. Right. So we have to still push the academics, but we also have to be mindful of these social emotional needs and not stressing. And so that was a balance that you were trying to see in education. And as someone who is very content focused and content minded, my wrestle was from March to May, we're basically 10 weeks of on-site instruction before we go into the next year. So that's 1/4 of high quality instruction that students should have been receiving. Now we're going into a space where we have 10 weeks where teachers hadn't been, properly or fully trained in distance learning. Resources were not equitable. And so we're scrambling to provide resources. We're scrambling to provide training. And teachers are also experiencing this pandemic as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Learning. I have several teachers that are in our Bible study fellowship leadership circle, and they're learning Zoom, right? It's like everybody learns Zoom for the first, just that, right? And then how to get it on screen and how to get the kids on and how to mute and how to, just all those things, transferring everything from in the classroom to now online or on, in the space. So yes, I just appreciate the teachers and all the work that they've done and the families. And you're right. There isn't anybody who has not been affected.
Right.
By what's going on in some way, shape, or form. There's not anybody that has not been affected by what is going on. Yeah.
And I think to the point around, again, how do we support students who have varying levels of support at home or varying levels of parent availability to support? And so I think that's where, relationships are more important now than ever. As a site administrator, I need to be able to have relationships with the parents of our students so that we can know, like, this student needs extra supports. But also we need parents on the other side reaching out saying, hey, here's our situation. I need to do this. I don't have the availability. Our situation is X, Y, and Z. How can we help? And so the biggest piece right now is establishing tribe. Again, the school needs to be the tribe, and we need to be able to know what everyone's situation is. Like, is this student, disengaging from the work because it's too hard? Are they disengaging from this work because they're depressed and they're having some social emotional issues that are really real to them right now? Are they disengaging because they're just stressed out because of their home situation? Or are they not doing this work because, they're trying to get out of the work and they want to play video games? And so getting to the point, to the understanding as to why things are happening. And now more than ever, there's all kinds of reasons as to why a student may or may not be doing something. And there's all sorts of reasons as to why a teacher may or may not be doing something. And so it's very, very complex. There is no silver bullet. The thing that's going to help us get through this the best are the relationships that teachers have with parents have with teacher, and the relationships between administrators and district office personnel. We've got to get really, really good at communicating, having sometimes uncomfortable conversations, and asking some difficult questions sometimes.
Yeah, I thank you. This has been so insightful for me, even, as a person, but as a grandmother, as a mother living in my own. You're speaking to me in several areas of my own life that I need to go back and revisit and be really more intentional in thinking about, how can I better serve those in my home? How can I better serve my family, my grandchildren, and my daughters and my son-in-laws? Is there places that I can, serve or that I can help alongside? So that, and I love, like you said, I'm going to keep going back to it, but really about foundationally having a schedule. And you used another word, so you're going to throw it back at me, but it's structure. So there's another S word for you, right? But it's schedule. I'm like, I pick up on those things. But schedule and structure. And you said but you did say it was a choice. So that was a C word, but I'm still throwing that in, right? It's a choice. You have to make that choice, and you have really to see what that is, setting up,
strong selection. If you need an S word,
strong selection, there you go. Strong selection. And I loved I love what you said, because between the, would you say systematic or asymptomatic? Symptomatic? Is that how you say it?
Asynchronous.
Asynchronous. So synchronous or
Yes.
asynchronous? Okay. I
Right.
learned a new word today. Two new words. Synchronous. I know
Yeah, yeah.
what that is.
I learned them a couple months ago.
Okay, I know what synchronous is, but asynchronous. So that was one of my concerns at the beginning, because I've been both where younger daughters, where my daughters, when they were younger, they're now in their 40s, but they went through the, public school education. And then we adopted a special needs son who is 20. So there's 20 years difference. And he and my grandson have gone through the homeschool. And for just various different reasons, not because, whatever, but my son basically was more medical issues, and he was in school, and then he would be sick and be out of school more than he was in school. So homeschool just became the way. But I always prayed at the beginning of the homeschool that he, and I was not qualified really to do the homeschool. I'm like, Lord, this is, I literally left school at 11th grade, right? I dropped out as a junior. I got married. I then had 2 children, and then I went back and got my GED after that. So trust me, I was the least likely, right? The least likely. But,
me too.
Okay. But God called me to this place of homeschooling. And I remember one of the ladies who is a principal of the Western Christian School, and she homeschool, and she said to me, the main thing, Terry, is to teach them a love for learning. Allow them the space to have a love for learning. And so that's always been my prayer for, both of the boys after the girls, to have a love for learning. And I can tell you that these boys have a love for learning. And I was concerned as I watched my grandchildren sitting in front of the screen, and other friends' grandchildren sitting in front of the screen, getting wiggly and just not really being able to engage, and feeling like they are disconnected, and a couple of them, because the sensory of all the people on the screen and hearing all the students, and they're having a hard time focusing on teacher and hearing teacher above all the noise. I was concerned, and one of my concerns was nobody will ever homeschool ever, because if they think that this is how it is, it's not going to be inviting. That's all I could think of, but what I hear you say, so what I want to bring that back to, what I hear you say is that, yes, there's a time for synchronized teaching to come together. And you said, I love that you said it's about an hour and a half. And I know that that's like a broad state, I know that you're not expecting everyone to be in that place, but I can almost see that that's so much more effective, because then in the asynchronized time, is that right? Did I get
Asynchronous, yeah, that's right.
that they can study, they have that study time on their own in their home to kind of research it a little more, or dig into it a little deeper, if they will, or if the parents can help them to be able to do that, so that it's beneficial. Because I think the tendency can be that they spend so much time on the screen, that and what are, how much are they really getting out of it in the volume of time where they might, and then they don't want to go back into it at all to do the homework or to do the other things out there either. So that is, and like you said, every situation is different. So I think you have to know your student, you have to know your child, you have to, where you can talk with the teacher, or not everybody's gonna, it's kind of different now. It's not just a classroom really working in all of these things. There's going to be different components that the teachers are embracing and that the parents are embracing. Am I correct?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I think every kid is different, every school is different, and every classroom is different, and every teacher in that classroom is different. And so, right, there's there is no like perfect, schedule. There is no perfect, amount of screen time. some folks that only get an hour and a half were very disappointed with that hour and a half. And then you look at, a grade level above or below, and those students are getting, 3 hours of screen time. And then you look again at the high school where they're getting over 5 hours, potentially over 5 hours of screen time every day. And depending on what the content is, the teachers' proficiency with technology and the other engagement resources that are available. And then there's a lot available out there, but to expect a teacher to go in and learn all of these different apps and programs, it's a heavy lift. And so, but some teachers can do that. And some school sites have done the work and provided the professional development for their teachers to be able to do that. And other sites may have not. And so again, every site is going to be different. Every classroom is going to be different. And I think, what we have to remember is I work from positive assumptions. And so I just have to assume that everybody is doing the absolute best that they can. Yeah. Because and schools, have dropped the ball. We've, we've not communicated well to parents on this issue or that issue. And then we've over-communicated on some issues that parents didn't receive well or didn't respond to properly. So I have to assume everybody is doing the best they can. And from March to May, that was my theme. Our theme at our school was like, we have to err in grace.
Amen.
Giving grades to students from March to May last year, as far as giving grades, as far as, the expectations on how often kids are able to get online. And we as administrators had to give grace to teachers. Yeah. As far as like how, and we needed teachers to give us grace. Yep. And we needed parents to give us grace. And so there was just a lot of grace. EGR, there was extra grace required.
That's what I was going to say when you're saying that. The word that kept coming to mind, Felix, was it's just grace. We need grace. We need grace, right? Favor of the Lord, favor of other people, right? And then I was going to say EGR, extra grace required. So we're on the same wavelength. Like there's extra grace required, more compassion for everybody, for people, and to know, as frustrated as people may be, or that as the students may be, that we as parents need to have extra grace for them. They need to have extra grace for us. But then the parents having extra grace for the teachers, and then for the schools, the school districts. I know you mentioned one of the frustrations. One daughter was like, they haven't let us know. Like they waited until the Friday before the school was starting on, Monday or Wednesday. I said, but they probably don't know. That's all I kept saying is they don't know. Maybe they thought it was going to change before they were really ready to roll it out, and they didn't know. And so, just kind of reminding her and reminding others that, this is different. And I know that we're going to learn a lot from it. God forbid that we have to really utilize it again. But if we do, then here we go. But I have to say, I'm so grateful for being able to connect. I mean, if we weren't living in the day we're living in today, we wouldn't have the internet. We wouldn't have the Zoom rooms. We wouldn't have, all these things to continue to move forward with our families. And it could be a whole lot different, a whole lot worse, because we'd be left on our own with nothing, right? Nothing in our hands. I know when I homeschooled the boys, I joined a private satellite PSP, right? I joined because they did all the work. They wrote the curriculum. All I did was sit there at the table, read books with them, and help them answer the questions, or guide them, or lead them, or leave them on their own. I didn't have to get down and do the nitty gritty with them in that way. I didn't write the schedule. Somebody else gave me the schedule, and I said, here, I can follow that. I was grateful for it. But for everybody, it's just so different. But Felix, I want to thank you so much for getting on here, because you really have helped, I think, enlarging the picture, like to start looking at in the home first, what's going on in the home, and then what's going on within the school, the classroom actually first, and then the school, and then the greater part of the district, and what parts can we do? Can we play? What parts can we adjust to help navigate education during COVID? And that was really the point of the conversation. How do we navigate? And I know the conversation, there's so much more that we could talk about and explore, but I think these are good things to start with for sure.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. And if I could just bring in one other point, to educator, colleagues, and friend, I think now more than ever, there's been talk about, culturally responsive pedagogy. And there's just a couple components of that, because what we're experiencing now it's a different reality, which creates a certain culture, if you will. And so when we talked about cultural responsive pedagogy, there's a lot of different things that go into that, but there's two main components that I really would like to express to my teachers and to my parents to, ask of your teachers. One is making the content relevant to our students. So what you're teaching, how does that content connect with that student today and in their lives? Or how is it going to connect to their lives? And so making it relevant to what our students are engaging in. And so that, again, that's another heavy lift that we put on teachers. The second thing is choice, providing students with voice and choice. We talked about that in the home space as far as space and setting and schedule, but also when we're talking about content, like we want to provide students some voice and some choice as to, what content that they're receiving. Not the level of rigor, because the standards are the standards. We want to make sure we keep the rigor there, but as far as how we get to that rigor, providing students some voice, some choice as to, how they're going to navigate this curriculum. Right now, students, a lot of students are feeling extremely powerless to make any decisions. And so I think that's another way that in the school setting that we can provide students with some voice and choice and empower them and help them feel a part of the process of their own educational process. And again, yes, that's going to require some more heavy lifting from teachers, from administrators to support that. But I think that's really what our students need, again, during these unprecedented times.
Yeah. And, we have to think, we can't put into motion our thought processes of the past, because that just, we're staying, like what you're saying is we're staying, if we do that, we're staying stuck back here. We literally need to, we're navigating a new road. We are not on this path. We are now on this path. And so how do we navigate all of these things on that path and still accomplish the same goal, right?
Absolutely. Yes. And teachers have done that. Like, in 3 months, education has changed more in 3 months than it has in the previous 100 years.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself, when you just think about that, the technological proficiencies that our teachers have now, it just grew exponentially because it had to. And that's the kind of people teachers are. Yeah. Teachers are the kind of people that do whatever it takes to get the job done because they know that's what's in the best interest of the student. And so my plea is that extra thing that needs to get done is providing students with voice and choice and making that content relevant where we can. We may not be able to do it every lesson every day, but where you can, make it relevant to our students to help them engage.
Tie it in. Oh, this is so good. This is so good. So good. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate just how it's even spoken to my heart just sitting here. And I know that it's going to reach many families and many homes and open up their hearts and their minds and help them to navigate. That's really what we came on here to help them navigate, because every situation is different and every circumstance, every household, everything is, but how, what can you do? And I love what you said. I'm going to go back to that. You said when all this started, you and the school district was about just doing our best to do our best and to do our best.
We can.
Yeah, do the best we can. I have a friend, Christian business coach, and her name is Jennifer Allwood. And she said early on in this, she said, as she was coaching, women in business, she says, people don't need your A work right now. They don't need your A work. Like we're waiting for perfection. Like we don't want to push forward until it's A, like it's perfect, right?
Right.
And I think of teachers because they want to give like the best. But what she's saying is our B work is okay right now. Pushing forward B work is okay. And she's not saying to lower the standard by any means. What she's saying is because we don't know how to really, we're trying to produce A work, but we don't really know what that A work looks like yet. We're navigating that, but people just need what you have. They need the best that you have right
your
now.
best work. Right.
The best work. We're not lowering standards, but just the best that you can. And it's funny because I've told people when we're on Zoom or, and we have a class and we have 139 women joining us on Monday night for a Bible study, fellowship.
Wow.
And I'm so blessed that because we are a smaller class, we're not a class of 300 and 500, we can pull all 139 online. And they're like, well, what happens if we go down? What happens if, this? And I said, the worst thing is we all get put off and we all sign back in. That's the worst thing on here that really, that I'm envisioning can happen. I mean, I know that people can hack. We've got, best measures we can to keep things locked down and keep it all synchronized the best we can. But the worst thing is we all get kicked out and we all kick back on, so again, just not letting things stop us because we might have a little bit of fear or trepidation in that, but to do the best we can as we're navigating, and we're going to learn. We're all going to learn from it.
Absolutely. And there's some beauty in the messiness of taking risks.
Yeah.
That's what we've all had to do. Like we're all taking risks in this distance learning. Like we're entering into a space that we haven't been before. And, we're trying new apps, we're trying new teaching strategies, we're doing different things, and it's messy. But I think there's a certain level of beauty in the messiness of taking risks.
Yeah. Something else, somebody said, no risk, no reward.
That's it.
No risk, no reward. We really have to kind of put it out there and put our best foot forward, right? Walk in faith, trust it. For me, it's just trusting in the Lord and that He's got this, and I'm just going to do the best I can to navigate each and every day. But Felix, I just want to thank you so much for sharing your time and your wisdom and giving us a greater understanding of what, how we can embrace our family during this time, how we can embrace our teachers, our school districts, all of that. I really greatly appreciate that. So if somebody were, to want to get in contact with you for more information or something, how could they do that?
So there's two ways. I'll give you my, and they're similar. My Twitter handle, in the world of academia, like Twitter is the place where there's so much professional development, a lot of wisdom out there. And so my Twitter handle is Jonesing for Math. That's JONES, the number 4, JONESING, the number 4, and then math. So that's my Twitter. And then my Gmail is jonesingformath, number 1. So jonesingformath1 @gmail.com. And so just because I have a love and a passion for mathematics, I love the beauty of mathematics. And as a 10-year math teacher and then math TOA for 4 years, math coordinator for 3, it's been my life, 17 years.
Wow, what a love that you have, and just such a passion for families, a passion for students, and a passion for the teachers. I appreciate all that you have, shared with us today. So I'll make sure all of that information gets in our show notes so that even if someone's listening and they're driving in their car and they can't take notes, that they can go back to the show notes and be able to see and gather that information. And I just want to thank you so much. You really have blessed me, and I'm sure blessed the audience today. So thank you again, Felix, for sharing.
Thank you for having me, and you're very welcome. And maybe we'll do it again.
I would love that.
Thanks for listening to Tuesday Talk with Terry. For more resources and to learn more about Terry, you can check out her website at terryhammond.com, or you can follow the link in the show notes. If you really enjoyed listening, make sure to subscribe and tell your friends.